Good afternoon to you. I am Professor Dinesh Gusai. We'll be addressing on one of the topics for the session that's about organizational behavior. But before we get into this subject of organizational behavior, we will make this session into a very simplified kind of format so that it's easily understandable. We will give lots and lots of examples from an organizational context so that the learning becomes very smooth and easy as well. So, also good afternoon to whichever part of the country you belong to in this wonderful summer, Indian summer as we call it. Great. So, with this learning openness, we take off from our session as far as organizational behavior is concerned. We would be having a series of around 6 to 8 lectures on organizational behavior, and we will go bit by bit, piece by piece in each of these elements. Great. So we have to look into when we are doing our MBA, organizational behavior as a term has cropped up or came up in the last 2 decades or so, very thick and fast. That means with very good speed, the awareness has raised about organizational behavior. So what is organizational behavior? So we will first try to define what is organizational behavior. We will also look into why there is a need to look into this area of organizational behavior. So when you look into organizational behavior, this is what we will be addressing in the coming 2 hours of our lecture or session. One, by the end of our session, we would be looking into describing what managers do. That means what are their functions. We will look into define the term itself, that's about organizational behavior. We look into explain the value of the systematic study. In fact, the session is also kind of very structured and layered as well. So we will also get into systematic. Why? Also there is a need to learn organizational behavior into a very systematic kind of process. We will identify the contributors made by the major behavioral sciences discipline to OB. That means we will look into what other disciplines have contributed to OB or organizational behavior. Also, we will list the major challenges and opportunities for managers to understanding these OB concept. This is what we will be addressing throughout our session. So, what is organizational behavior? So, when we say organizational behavior, it comes from 2 words. One is the organization and 2 is the behavior. Now, when we speak of organization, it means about people. It means about you, me, people around that come together to form a company or an organization for a desired outcome or for a desired goal. Now, the goal could be based or for the customer in terms of a product. It could be a service, or it could be a manufacturing setup. So any of those for common desired outcome, when people come together for a task, it is called as organization. Second, behavior. Now what is behavior? Now if you see, individuals have behavior, isn't it? Now when individual behavior come together under one roof, they form a kind of pattern. In fact, even with individuals, if you observe, we are all patterned behaviors, or we demonstrate behaviors which are repetitive. For example, very common examples to say so, that suppose if you are sleeping on one side of the bed at a very individual level, if a person is sitting just on one side of the bed and if somebody asks him, can you sleep this side? Or he will kind of react, oh no, no, how is this possible? So, as individuals, people generally don't like change because they love their behaviors to be repetitive, because this is something that people love. Now, behaviors, they say, are very much in a pattern. Now, when individuals demonstrate behavior in a pattern, so does organizations, because organization at the end of the day is association of people, isn't it? It's group of people coming together. So now when different behaviors come together, their behaviors also kind of average it out to form a universal pattern of the company or the organization. And that is what we more commonly call as a company culture. Now suppose if you are doing your MBA alongside with your doing a job as well, which I am sure majority of you all would be doing it. Now, if you have some kind of work experience, you will understand this better. Means that every company or an organization has a culture. So, what is a culture? Culture is the averaged behavior of all individuals put together to form a culture. So when we are saying behavior over here, there is a common behavior to the organization as well. So when we are looking at this is a very simplified definition which I'm giving you, so that we understand the subject better. So when we are speaking of organizational behavior, it is the behavior that the employees together demonstrate when they are working in an organization. Now the key question to be asked over here is, why there is a need to get into this, to understand this. Now, students, you need to understand that we are living in an age where the flux or change is very sharp. It is very fast. In fact, they say that the ratio of change that has happened in the last 100 years is as equivalent to the change that we had taken up in the last 1000 years. And it is also said the last 10 years of change is as equivalent to the change of last 100 years. So that means that we are changing very fast. Now, what are the changes involved? As far as the organization are concerned, the changes involved are the change in technology, the change of machinery, the change of approach that people have, the change of skill sets that the people have, the change of knowledge that the people have, the change of many things, change of time. So the change is happening very fast, and so do people change as well. Now we need to understand, earlier a lot of importance was given to resources. It still is given, but the resources in this last 50 years, when industrial revolution was happening during the 18th and 19th century, a lot of importance was given to resources like machinery, infrastructure, power, energy related resources. But as time has progressed, these still remain important, but one resource that has come in the forefront or foreground more predominantly is the human resource. Human resource is people resource. Now these resources, we need to understand they are not static. Static means they are not constant. They are dynamic in nature. That means, see, it's not a machine. Human resource is not a machine. It's very much dynamic. It's very much evolving. It's very much growing as well. Now, we need to figure out that since humans are very much dynamic in nature, so does it influence the organization as well. Some time back, maybe 20, 30 years back, or 4 decades back or so, the role of a HR manager was only restricted to admin functions or payroll functions. But today, if you see the role of the personnel department has moved to HR, HRD, HRM, human resource management and human resource development. We speak about how to build team. Gone are the days when we could push people to get the job done, because that was a very autocratic kind of mode. But today are the times when we need to do a lot of hand holding and a lot of togetherness involved, because we humans are also evolving as well. So the point is, the day that we are living in is about lot of freedom of speech, expression, thoughts. So in these times, it is important that people need to be taken together to do a task. And that is precisely the reason in the last 50 years or so, terminologies like teamwork, team building, leadership, coaching, mentoring have been evolved and spoken about more as compared to terminologies like commanding, directing, things like that. So the point is, when we are looking at organizational behavior, we need to understand, end of the day, one of the key resource we are dealing with, that's human. So we will look into, in the coming 6-8 sessions or so, how these two, one end we have organization, that is people, and how their behavior interact so that we optimized the result, so that we get effectiveness and efficiency both. Effectiveness and efficiency, important to understand, because we will refer to effectiveness and efficiency in the sessions to follow. So, do you know what is the difference between effectiveness and efficiency? Okay, so think about it. So, when we say of effectiveness, effectiveness is about doing a particular job as per whatever the plan was. Is doing the job, is doing the right things based on whatever goals you have set. Efficiency, when we speak, is about doing the things but with least amount of resources. Now, resources could be time, it could be external physical resources. So when we can do that with less resources, could be less time, could be with less money, then it becomes more efficient. So when we think of organizational behavior, we will also look into from the context of how we are going to make this more effective and efficient. Great. So we move on. I hope we are on the same page as we are moving on together. Great. So when we are looking, if you want to now, first I have given a very generic definition, but if you go by a standard definition about organizational behavior, it is a field of study that investigates how individuals, groups, and structure affect and are affected by behavior within organizations for the purpose of applying such knowledge towards improving an organizational effectiveness. So we are looking into how people or a group of people, because organization comes under various SBUs or teams or workstations or groups. So how they're affected or going to affect the behavior in the organization so that it becomes more effective is what organizational behavior is. So once initially I gave a very brief description definition, but it's a kind of detailed kind of description about organizational behavior. Great, we move on. Now the important question, anything that we study we get to know. Why are we studying? So why do we need to study OB or organizational behavior? It is to learn about ourselves and others. Let me tell you that when we are working in any organization as groups, functions, teams, it is so very important that we understand each other well. We get to know areas of strength, areas where the person needs to grow. We get to know how people respond to difficult times, to good times, how people grow within an atmosphere. So it's very important to understand people. Now, a lot of companies these days, if you have working experience, you get to know a lot of employee engagement have begun, isn't it? Or interventions are there. Now, interventions could be in the form of a training. Interventions could be in the form of assessment centers. Interventions could be in the form of a very informal cultural night kind of event. Interventions could be very informal kind of picnic, weekend parties, birthday celebrations. So end of the day, these are all interventions. One could be a very formal approach, it could be an assessment center. If you have gone through your HRM classes, you will get to know what assessment centers are. Or it could be a standard designed MDPs or management development programs or trainings to move, call it, where we are looking at skill development of people. So it is about to learn about yourself and others. Two, it is to understand how the many organizations you encounter work. So we are looking at how they're interrelated from the job function, because when people are working under one roof, when people deal with one-to-one, they are very different when dealing in a group. And that's where when we look into that OB comes from a lot of backdrop from sociology as well, because we are also social beings apart from individual beings. So how we deal in groups are very different. So we look into those aspects as well. To become familiar with teamwork. That means today when we also want to look into the common phrase that is commonly called in a lot of organizations, it is said 1 plus 1 should be more than 11. Heard about this? I repeat, 1 plus 1 has to be more than 11 while working in teams. So what does that mean? That means that when two people are working together, it need not be statistically the mathematical figure that one person's work, when we add to the other person's work, it has to be 2. So we want to, what we here want to know is how we can synergize people work together so that the 1 plus 1 becomes more 2. Because, so here we speak about motivational learning strategies as well. We want to look into to become familiar with teamwork. Now, people are of different types. If you know, be it in any circle, some people like to work in silos. Silos means in isolation or individual. Some people work in teams well, or some people can only work in teams. So all these variants that we have. So we are also learning OB or organizational behavior to identify what type and kind of people are there, and based on these needs, maybe we can delegate the task, assign the work, look into the job type that the person is given, or can be groomed up for working in the teams better. And we are also learning OB to help you think about people issues faced by managers and entrepreneurs. If you see these days, lots of trainings or books or videos have been written for the pure simple reason they want to know people better. So people here also means self better and people better. So a lot of training interventions or books are written on self-help books, that is about understanding self better, and also how we can relate to people better. So we say that the times that we are living in is how we can relate with people better. They say that it's about power with people than power over people. So when if you want to relate with people better, if you want to get the job done, if you want for a company to show effectiveness and efficiency in results for their stakeholders, we are looking at how we can relate to people better so that we can deliver results. That's the point that we are trying to make. So why we are studying OB? It is one, to understand about ourselves and others. It's also to understand how to work in teams. It's also to understand how people behave differently and assign tasks as well. So this is primarily the reason why we are trying to learn organizational behavior. Okay, let's go next. Okay, so still taking it further about the topic, when we say of organization, it is a consciously coordinated social unit. A very important point, keywords here are consciously, means intently they are designed, coordinated, synergized, put together. Social unit, because we are social beings, composed of two or more people that functions on a relatively continuous basis to achieve a common goal or set of goals. So classical definition of organization, when two or more people come together for a common purpose. That's how we define an organization. Great. So focal points that we will be kind of dealing with or relating to in today's session, forthcoming session on organizational behavior would be on jobs, work, absenteeism, employment turnover, productivity, human performance, and management. What we are trying to say is, when we are discussing organizational behavior, now these are the facets that any organization deals with. One, describing the job or the job type or the JD, the work allocation or work delegation, or absenteeism, why people remain absent, or even attrition. Attrition is why people leave. So when we are looking at now people living in organization, is it cost for the company? Big time cost. Let me tell you, there's a lot of cost involved to recruit people, train them, make them there be in the company. And if a person leaves, it's a huge cost. Now, one of the biggest drawbacks when we speak of attrition or people leaving the organization is that they directly go and join the competitors. That's the first big time loss. Two, there's a cost involved to further recruit the other people. Three, we are going to reinvest time, energy, resource, money to train the new recruits. So that means that if we have a good organizational design, or if we can understand people better, these could be dealt with. We never say that with attrition, that means we can narrow down or titrate attrition to zero. It never happens. We all know that. But can we manage it effectively and efficiently so that we kind of manage it well? So these are the focal points that we're addressing: jobs, work, absenteeism, employment turnover, productivity, human performance, and management. Great. So we will look into the other facet, that's about complementing intuition with systematic study. Now, we will be, as I mentioned earlier, we will be learning organizational behavior in a very systematic process. That means layer by layer. But we'll also try to infuse in intuition. Now, what is intuition? Intuition is the gut feeling. You know, when making decisions or when any situation happens in real time also, we have two elements that comes in as far as decision making is concerned. One is the cognitive element, the rational element or the logic element, where people think rationally based on data, facts, figures, experience. The other element is an emotion. Emotion means some people just make a decision that, come on, I am not feeling like I should do this or not do this. So that's what we call as intuition or gut feeling, more commonly being addressed to. So in this systematic study, we will try to abridge it or put together logic plus intuition with this to a systematic study. So intuition is a gut feeling explanation of the behavior, because let me tell you friends, when people work in organizations, not always do they decide or behave only by logic, because we are not computers. We never were. A lot of time people deal and behave and make decisions based on emotions. And emotions are intuitive in nature. That means a lot of time what happens in the backdrop, people are not really aware of. So people take emotional decisions as well. So when we are looking at organizational behavior as a subject, we also want to know that people are emotional beings. That means they will not necessarily make decisions based on logic standalone. They will also behave through their emotions. So we need to understand this as well. So systematic study, when we are doing about OB, improves ability to accurately predict behavior. Now, based on my 2 decades of experience, let me tell you first thing, that anybody for that matter, we cannot never accurately come to a point of prediction of behavior. I'm repeating, prediction of behavior or forecasting of behavior. But definitely, if you do a systematic study of organization and behavior, we can get to a fair amount of detail about how people respond to a particular kind of situation. I hope I'll repeat what I'm saying. If we do a systematic study through OB, we can predict a lot of behavior patterns, and that really helps to manage the work well. For example, I'll tell you, when people take interviews, when people go for job, for any kind of job, and when interviews are taken, you might have heard that a lot of companies do psychometric test. Now, what are the psychometric tests? Psychometric test, end of the day, what they do are give patterns or behavior repetitions. So, psychometric test gives a detailed analysis about maybe a particular skill of knowledge where the behavior is repeated. So, systematic study improves the ability to accurately predict behavior. That means it assumes behavior is not random. Let me tell you, people in any context just do not behave at random. They just doesn't behave like that. It has a backdrop or background to it. Fundamental consistencies underlies behavior. That means there is definitely some pattern or consistency about it, and these can be identified and modified to reflect individual differences. Now friends, let's also understand that when people come together under one roof in any organization, a lot of challenges happens because of difference of opinion. And if there is a difference of opinion, chance of conflict happening is many. And conflict need not necessarily, when we say conflict need not necessarily has to be a fight. Conflict could be a difference of opinion. Now, if people are not trained, groomed, made to understand how to deal with conflict, or how to know that primarily all people are different. Now, we need to understand primarily that all 5 fingers are different. We can never compare an apple with a mango. That means that every individual is special and unique in their own ways. And this definitely is the term of HRM or HRD, which will take that learning into organizational behavior. So when we say one, we have discussed so far the definition of organizational behavior. We have also tried to understand why are we learning organizational behavior. We are also trying to understand that we will do a systematic study, not only based on logic, but we will also get into the intuition or gut feeling about it, because people are emotional beings and the behaviors are repetitive or patterned. So if we can identify patterns, we can deal with people and their behaviors more effectively and efficiently. Great. I hope we are on the same page. But still, if you have got any questions till now also, or any point of time, what you can do, students, is you can make a note out of it on a page and please revert it back to ISBM so that we could email it back to you. Maybe give more references to read so that the learning becomes more concrete and more complete in the sense. Great. Now, when we are saying systematic study, what does it mean? Systematic study is examine relationships. So, when we are doing systematic study means we get into individual details and see, is there a relationship between each other? Now, it could be between teams, it could be of behavior, it could be behavior representations as well. We look into attempts to attribute cause and effect. Now we will also look into whenever the effect is seen of a behavior, we will look into was there any particular cause behind it. So we'll try to define this cause and effect relationship. Like certain companies or people behave in a certain way based on the cause. So classically, if you do a analysis of fishbone analysis, this is called as root cause analysis. RCA, root cause analysis. So we look into the cause and effect relationship. It bases conclusion on scientific evidence. So we are not just trying to draw inferences out of the blue. We are not doing that. We will do based on a scientific pattern, and those are data gathered under controlled conditions. So whatever we are going to discuss in this lecture or the forthcoming lecture, all the data or all the findings or all the studies that we will find is coming from studies conducted, from research done on sample sizes, and we are drawing that inferences from there. Data is measured and interpreted in a personally rigorous manner. So when we are interpreting data, we are also looking in from how we can cut perception. So we don't want people to perceive in such a particular way. So we are also looking into these aspects as well as we go along. Great. When we say of evidence-based techniques that are used to understand organizational behavior, it means we are looking at complement systematic study. So we will complement the models and findings together. It is based decisions on the best available scientific evidence. That means whatever data is coming in, we will look into how they are kind of fused together in a particular way so that they come and do an evidence-based thing as well. It forces managers to become more scientific in their thinking. So when you MBA graduates, if you're already working or work as managers, it will be a fantastic thing that you are given this data so that they can use this tool to apply as well. So managers want this tool of knowledge about people, about how they behave in particular kind of situations as well. Great. So when we say systematic study, so we look into roles and skills in the new workplace. Now, let me tell you, as I was discussing earlier as well, the way that we managers used to work in organizations before means say 30, 40 or 50 years before, and now their roles have been very much diversified. They are more sharper. So what we will look into what changes have been to. Now, when we speak of managers' role, few things that has added up. Roles and skills, the new workplace is the point. New. That means what has added up to that which was not there. One, flexibility. Now, flexibility. What is flexibility? Flexibility is ability to adapt to different situations. Now, in times of change, they say if you are not flexible, be it as an individual or as a company, if you are not flexible to the changes around what's happening, people or organization become extinct very fast. Very fast. I mean, you look at a lot of companies around. I mean, you see a telegram office. You see Enron in India. Lots of pager as a product. People, product or organization becomes extinct very fast. They kind of become obsolete. So, people, organization or product become obsolete because They were never flexible enough to change to the current environment. You look at Nokia phones. When we are speaking of feature phones, they were very much in as a product. But they were very late to take on the smart technology into their sphere, and they continued with their feature phones. And once upon a time they were kind of rulers in Asian markets. But with the advent of smart technology, really Samsung and Apple have taken over the market of mobile industry. So this applies to organization people as well. So we should be flexible. From a manager's perspective, the flexibility means he needs to be a mentor to the team. Mentor means somebody who could groom the team, guide the team, direct the team, help the team member, support the team member. Innovator means he needs to find out newer ways to do things, better ways to do things, creative ways to do things, so that work becomes more efficient. So that means same work, can it be done with low cost? Same work, can it be done in less time? Can it be done with more quality? So these are, or can it be done more conveniently? So we speak of flexibility the manager that should have. External focus. Now if you see from the external focus, the resource available being broker and producer. That means how he is relating to the external focus in terms of the stakeholders outside, or what kind of control mechanism he has when he are directing or coordinating. So he should have both these roles of directing the team whenever the need comes, or even being flexible enough to be a coordinator or coordinating the team. Or the internal focus of monitoring and facilitating. Monitoring means they say that whatever could be measured only could be managed. A very important point. Whatever could be measured only could be managed. That means that if you don't monitor your work, and monitoring is the first step, then you have to measure it as well. Now, if you don't monitor the work that you're doing, your work and your team's work as a manager, it can be a huge struggle. So are you really as a manager monitoring your work and facilitating? Now based on the feedback that you have got from monitoring, are we making requisite changes? Are we making changes that are suitable to the environment? Are we looking into the external environment as well? And based on it, change our style of how do we deal with people. That means, am I directing if the need arises? Or am I coordinating if the need arises? Different styles of functioning. So, roles and skills of a manager have kind of moving along these new skill sets as well. Now, how companies are changing as well. Now, if you see, there was a time when they were called as cool companies. I mean, they kind of chilled out about their approach. Few characteristics that we will be looking into, and that's very interesting to observe as well. Those are, believe casual days are progressive. So people are given casual days. So people feel that giving casual days is quite cool. Or believe titles are obsolete. That means designations, the designation that we give to the employee, they say it doesn't matter much in cool companies. Don't impose on employees personal time. So don't intervene in personal time. Or allow staff to come and go as they please. So not much of discipline or importance to discipline was given in terms of time. Or offer all employees stock option. That means since all are working people give employee stock option. And what is employee stock option? That means if a company is listed in a BSE, NSE or any stock exchange, the share option or a co-ownership option is given to employees as well. So, offering to all employees, or let employees make decisions that affect their work. So, in cool companies, people are given the liberty and freedom to take decisions. Great. And offer assistance with child care as well. Now, it's about looking after the family as well. That includes the pregnancy leave, if she's a mother, or fatherhood leave if he is a father. Have minimal bureaucracy. That means less of control. The old companies think casual Fridays are pitiful. That means they go by that all days are same and don't much change the approach. Charge employees for perks and incentives. That means it could be a taxation purpose or really paid for it as well. Hold events on employees' time as well. So whenever, even say for example, a picnic is organized or something, they see to it that any events are held in employees' time as well. Or have flexi time but only between 7:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. That means the time allocated even for flexi is kind of having a restricted zone. Hide financial results from the employees. The old companies normally don't share this data with their internal employees. Encourage employee input but rarely act on it. That means whenever feedbacks are taken from the employee when they do engagement, but that's just a ritual. The feedbacks are taken how the company should grow, etc., etc. But actually, they are not actually implemented as a process or an SOP. Employ rigid hierarchies. That means the chain of command or the authority levels are many. Now, friends or students, you will find that if you look into the cool companies and the old companies, a lot has transpired. Yes or no? That means that the culture has changed a lot. When people have progressed or companies have progressed from old companies, philosophy, thoughts, belief systems, the value addition that they had were very different. Even if you see the mindset, what are these? The primarily the mindsets. So these have changed as companies have moved to cool companies. Cool means progressive companies. These are the current companies. They want to look at the picture as well. So these climate have been changing dramatically. And also the old company philosophy also was stop and open door policy. Open door policy means not everybody had the option of expressing their thoughts or so. Great. So we'll look at the challenges facing the workplace. Now, if you look at the workplace, they are influenced by three factors. That means they are one, at every level there is an individual level, correct? Then there is a group level. That now the individual level form a group. That means they are team, they are part of the team, and they interact as well. Now 4-5 groups put together form the organizational level. Just like, for example, to give an example of a company, there is one at the very bottom end of the pyramid. There is an individual working, and then individuals are pulled together. They are formed teams, and larger teams from SBUs or strategic business units. And when 5, 6, 10 SBUs or strategic business units are put together, they become at the organizational level. Now, if you see, all these zones interact with each other as well. When you look at individual level, The things involved are number one, job satisfaction. Is he satisfied about his job? We speak about empowerment as well and behaving ethically. Now, students, let me tell you, in today's world, a lot of thing is spoken on ethics. Ethics means values, moral values. Otherwise, if people are not having moral values, companies also close down. You look at Satyam Computers. It was really growing, robust, but within no time, all goofed up because lack of moral values. Right at the head, that means right at the CEO. So we look at individual level, group level. That means how individual work with others. Because when we are working in a company, we cannot do silo. We are working together also as team. Workforce diversity. We are looking at different type of individuals will come together under one roof, so that we are working together. Organizational level as well. When we are looking at organizational level, we are looking at productivity, we are looking at effectiveness, developing effective employees. Are we giving promotion to people? That means people are getting elevated at the organizational level. The global competition, because since with the liberalization and with the opening of economy world over, we're looking at how the company is going to handle modern day challenges of globalization. That means relating with people outside and managing in a global village. And that's the reason these days a lot of people speak about being global. Global. That means think globally, act locally. Global, Glocal. That means thinking globally, acting locally. And now, lots of examples from this kind, right from Jumbo Xerox to Goli Vada Pavs, lots of them, where the thinking means thinking. What does thinking globally mean? Thinking globally means you accept all international structure about how to market, how to go in different terrains, different locations, different topographies, but yet be local. Local in the sense how to raise efficiency, how to see that we can deliver results in low cost or low time. So when we are looking at challenges being faced in the workplace, all these three interact at the workplace. So how are we going to manage this effectively is the challenge. Great. So today's challenges, if you see from a manager perspective, one definitely is productivity. Any organization, students is very clear, they want results, isn't it? Because if you don't have results, difficult to survive. You can't just survive. So we want productivity, we want effectiveness as well. As we discussed right at the beginning of the session, we want effectiveness. We want whatever the desired results were planned, was it achieved? And we want efficiency as well. We not only want to achieve results, but we also want to achieve that in less time, less resource, less cost, and that's how make it more efficient. Now we look into developing effective employees. Now whenever we speak of organizational citizenship behavior or OCB, it is a discretionary behavior that is not part of an employee's formal job requirements, but that nevertheless promotes the effective functioning of the organization. Let me tell you, when a person goes for an interview to get a job, primarily either the interview or even the individual for that matter is recruited or selected for the particular job based on the skills, educational qualification, age, maybe the place available, the knowledge that he has, the experience that he has. These are the few things that go into as far as the recruitment is concerned. But when we speak about productivity, effectiveness, and efficiency for a person, that also means the person need to go beyond as well. That means he should be able to relate with people. That was never tested when he was recruited or taken in the company at that point of time. That was not expected also. But is that important from an organizational behavior perspective? Very much yes. Now, if that is true, then we need to groom the person well so that he can relate to other people working in his team. One, also he should be able to be more self-aware about himself. Now, we speak a lot about self-awareness. Now, what is that self-awareness? Self-awareness is how much do we know ourselves. And why is that important? It is important because the more aware we are about ourselves, that means we should be knowing our intentions, our goals, our motivation, our strengths, our areas that we need to grow, evolve, expand, explore, unleash. So, the more self-aware we are, we can figure out ways so that we improve on it, build over it, be better than what we were yesterday. So, when we are looking at effectiveness, when we want effective employees, be it self or others, we are looking at more understanding of self and more understanding of others because we can relate to people better. Putting people first. Now, what does putting people first means? Friends, it's very important to understand that the times that we are doing business, the times that we are working together, we just can't do it alone, that's for sure. And that's the reason many people have said that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go high in life, go together. That means what we can do together is much more than what we can do individually. So, putting people first means that we have a committed workforce and positively affect the bottom line. That means that if we can relate to people better, that naturally go on to increase performance. More control and say in their work. When any employee engagement is carried out or when any interventions are carried out within an organization, people are more heard, more listened, productivity also goes up. How do you put people first is the question then. So, when we are looking at how do you put people first, that means we have a lot of interventions, we have a lot of engagements, we have a lot of formal and informal engagements. Now, those could be birthday celebrations, those could be picnic, those could be outing, those could be cultural night program annual, or those could be a very formal based approach in terms of training and development. It could be coaching and mentoring, it could be succession planning, it could be appraisal, any of those. Great. Global competition. Now, when we speak of global competition, in recent years they say businesses have faced through international competition as well as from other companies within our borders. That means that with post-liberalization, where close to 300 odd countries are exchanging information, knowledge, product, people, services. That means that on one hand, as an organization, people have opportunity to grow, explore in other countries. On the other hand, also what has come is other companies are also coming in to do their business in our own area or our own zone, and that brings up challenges of its own kind. Now, what are those kind of challenges? That means that if you don't have internationally acclaimed technology of product or services, you might leave behind or lag behind. So you need to be globally competitive in the kind of products that you give or the kind of services you have to offer, kind of communication that you make to your customer. And that's precisely if you see in all companies today, the entire company's focus or the punchline, tagline, theme line, whatever you call it, has been focusing on being customer centric. Now, for them, for any organization, customer centricity is what people revolve around. And when we speak about customer centricity, because employees are also internal customers, this engagement is important. And when we speak of global competition, that also impacts with the changing scenario. It reduces cost, increase productivity, and improve quality. So with global competition coming on, any customer, when we speak of customer centricity, few things impact. And those things are cost, quality, convenience, time. There are four things that impact any kind of product or services. They are cost, quality, convenience, time. Cost, customer will be having delighted to have a less cost, but that's not the only factor. The other factors are quality. Am I getting an improved version or improved quality? So why are Sony TV sales than other TVs? So they say quality comes with the premium, and in the longer run, high price is low cost. High price, low cost, that means it has less service to offer. So one is cost, the other is quality. Convenient. Whatever product or service I am giving, is it more convenient to my customer? It could be the post-sales service. It could be the pre-sales service. It could be any of those. Am I making offering the product in the marketplace more convenient? So cost, quality, convenience, and time. Can I deliver, or does my product or services give results within less time, or give the product itself in less time? So these all factors influence. So when we speak of any organization's product or services, it plays with these four factors. One is cost, two is quality, third is convenience, and the fourth is time. Managing and working in a multicultural world. Now, any companies, if you see, people have CEOs, because today we are living in an environment of MNCs and TNCs, multinational companies and transnational companies. So in this kind of scenario, we will find that lots of CEOs need not necessarily has to be from the home country where the company belongs from. It can be from somewhere else as well. And if you look into the company's history of majority of people, you will find that. And you can find with Google CEO, you can find with Microsoft. So you can find it Indians becoming CEOs in Google as well. So you can find this difference. So managers and employees must become capable of working with people from different cultures. Now this is very important to understand, that we or individual he or she might be brought up in a particular environment, but we are working in an organization along with people. Very important to understand that the kind of people he is going to deal with, within the organization also are from different cultures. Means that their upbringing are very different from what the local companies might have to offer. So they're very different as well. And that's a very important point to understand as well. Now, if you see the layers of OB, now we'll get into the systematic structuring and layering of what OB is all about. If you see the layers, we look at first, there are three layers primarily. One, individual. Two, the group. Three, the organization. Now, if you see these three layers, the individual, group, and the organization. If you see, when we are looking at individual, we are looking at emotions, their values, their perceptions, and personality. Now, we will be addressing each of these in detail as we progress. Individual is composed of their emotions, value, perceptions. What are perceptions? Perceptions are the way the people think. The way the people think. And perception sometimes can be dangerous. To give an example of perception, if I ask you all that, do you know which direction the sun rises from? I repeat my question. Do you know which direction the sun rises from? You will say, obviously east, isn't it? But students understand that in reality, sun never rises, because we keep on rotating and revolving around the sun. So what appears to us as real might not be the reality. So this is an optical perception. This is an illusion, isn't it? This is an illusion. This is called as perception of visual perception. But there are mental perceptions as well. Mental perception are the beliefs that we think that it's true, but it might not be true. So when we're looking at individuals, we're looking at their emotions, their values, their perceptions, and their personalities. We are looking with the group, the common interface or the overlap that happens is motivating self and others. When we speak of motivation, it's so very important to understand that in a fast-paced life, or in a time when it has become so very competitive, in a time that when there's a cutthroat competition for cost, product, service, quality, there's a lot of stress involved as well to deliver the best product. Now, in this stress, to keep motivated enough for a long period of time is always a challenge, isn't it? Now, even when we are doing our MBA, when we started off our journey as a student doing our MBA, initially the thrill for majority of students is very high. But as the time progresses, maybe 6 months, 8 months, motivation levels sometimes for majority come down. So it also means if we have good understanding about ourselves, how can we motivate ourselves? How can we motivate ourselves? Now, we will speak about motivational strategies as well in forthcoming sessions, and how we can motivate others to get the job done. So, when we say getting the job done by others, means that we need to first identify whether the person is motivated or not. And one of the thumb rules when we speak of any organization these days, it says that don't teach a man how to catch fish. It is said, don't teach a man they say that, if I'm putting in simple words, don't give a man a fish, catch him fishing. I repeat, don't give a man a fish, catch him fishing. That means that, and on similar lines, it's it's called as motivation. If you want to continuously motivate people for a longer period of time, and a person continuously require motivation externally, it's a difficult task, isn't it? This is better if people are self-motivated. Yeah, at certain moments people need motivation externally because of external situations, maybe of results, the ups and downs of life as well. So when we are dealing with people or individual, we will look into how we are motivating self and others. We are looking at when people interact in team or group, we look at negotiation, we look at conflict, we look at communication between groups and teams. And when we are dealing with group, naturally you will agree these things come in. That is power and politics. That means it is a common part of human behavior that we have natural tendencies to prefer people. That means we sort out people by preferences. The preferences could be likelihoodness based on any of the factors. It could be region, it could be religion, it could be language, it could be choices, preferences, so many, so on and so forth. So, how are we going to deal with politics or power associated as well? Because you will find that if you are already working for an organization, some people are crazy for power. That means they want power and authority as well. And the third layer, the higher level, is the organization. That means here people look into the change in technology, people, environment, the resources, the time available, time scarcity. We look into organizational culture or the common behavior demonstrated as well. We look into decision making as well. Critical decisions to be taken at critical moments. So here the visionary kind of thing comes into picture. That means how are you going to strategically decide on certain things. Definitely we also look into leadership, because since it's a very dynamic kind of thing that we are all dealing with, that means it's so very dynamic where different factors are influencing together. So when you are looking at the layers of OB, those are individual, group, organization. In individual, we discussed about emotions, values, perceptions, personality. In group, we discussed about negotiation, conflict, communication, and group. We are also looking at organization in terms of change, leadership, organizational culture, and decision making. Great. Now, we will look into how will knowing OB makes the difference. The critical question is, if we are knowing organizational behavior, how is that's going to make a difference? So let's understand this one by one. For managers, for individuals, how are they going to make a difference? If we will look into the rigors of OB or the difficulties of organizational behavior are, OB looks at consistencies. Very, very important point. When we are dealing with organization, it's very important to understand that we are looking at consistencies. What are consistencies? Consistencies are patterns. Consistencies are things that get repeated and hence become consistent. OB is more than common sense. So OB takes into consideration not only the logic part about it, because it can come from data finding or data mining. It can come from facts and figures. But OB is much more than that. OB has few absolutes. That means it's not about based on only few fact finding. It is coming from a database as well. OB takes a contingency approach. Contingency means situational based approach. It is not something that is based on a particular few factors only. It looks into situational things as well as we get along. Now, the research method. Now, how are we going to gather data as far as OB is concerned? There are various research methodologies available, and those are research methodologies available. Those are how do we gather data? One, we gather data either from field studies. Field studies means in real life organizations. We look into organization, go there, do a sample study, and we get data. Or it could be laboratory studies. Laboratory studies means in simulated and controlled settings. So we do a sampling size. It would be a simulation with a simulated kind of environment. Simulated means it's not a real environment, but if you are given a particular kind of environment, how are we going to cope with it? We get into case studies where looking in depth at single situations as well. We are looking at survey studies. Survey studies, what do we do in survey studies? It is using questionnaires and interviews with sample population. That means we pick up few sample, we do a questionnaire based study as well. So we do a survey study or we do a meta-analysis. What is meta? Meta means something above. That means we are looking at certain things and looking from a bird's eye view. We are doing a meta-analysis. So what do we do meta-analysis? Is using statistics to pull results of different results. So with a meta-analysis, what we do is from all this results that we get from case scenario or simulation or field studies, we are in meta-analysis find out whether there is a pattern exists, whether it's something which is statistically significant, something that we can relate to or can infer or conclude. And based on these findings, we come up to certain conclusions or interpretations, and these results are taken up and given to managers so that they can use this as they are working in the organization. I hope you're getting this. So I repeat, how does OB help? One, they do a lot of study. The studies could be of different types. They could be field study, laboratory study, case studies, questionnaires. From this, data is gathered, data is observed, measured, find out something which was statistically significant, and then these learnings are taken and extrapolated there as well. Great. So this is what it is done. Bottom line, and so what do we want to say? We want to say that OB is for everyone. How it is that for everyone? Organizational behavior is just not for managers. It is not for only one individual being. It's also at the employee at the lowest rung of the hierarchy. So even if a person has just joined on day 0 or day 1, even for him OB is important. Why? One, maybe for self-awareness, understanding himself better, because that's part of the induction training. OB applies equally well to all situations in which you interact with others on the basketball court, on a grocery store, in a school, or any religious place. So that means that we have applying to all situations. So we also find out what is it that managers do. Now managers do various key functions or portfolios. What managers do is individuals who achieve goals through other people. If you want to define the role of manager, what he needs to do, it's for a manager, it's not about doing a job. His job is getting the job done by delegating the task, by seeing that who is doing what, by looking into who is good at what, by experience, by knowledge, by delegate the task. If you see the managerial activities, these are about decision making, allocating resources, direct activities of others to attain goals. Now, my question to you all is, if a managerial activities are this, does the inferences or conclusions of organizational behavior help to influence this? Yes, it does. In all matters, it does. Great. So where managers work, we'll also find where do they work? They definitely work in organization, isn't it? We all know that managers work in organization. Now when we are working in organization, it means that it's a conscious, coordinated social unit composed of two or more people that functions on a relatively continuous basis. Important student, the keyword is continuous basis to achieve a common goal. Now when two or more people come to work in an organization, they work in a continuous process. Now that's where managers work within the organization. The management function for a manager has primarily 4 roles broadly that could be pulled up broadly, and those are: number 1, organizing. A manager needs to organize various facets and things. Second, leading. Third, controlling. And fourth, planning. Whichever order you take it, but primarily the manager has these functions. 1, planning and organizing. Planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. These are the primary functions of a manager. So what are the functions of manager? Planning, organizing, leading, and managing. So we are going to look into how learning of organizational behavior is going to impact all these functions as well. Great. So when we are looking at management functions, we'll try to look into these 4 areas that we discussed one by one. What are those 4? 1 is planning, organizing, 3rd is leading, and 4th is managing. So one by one we'll discuss. 1 is planning. They say that the process of planning is that which includes defining goals, establishing strategies, and developing others to coordinate activities. They say that it is so very important for a manager to know what is it that he wants to do. Means, what are the organizational goals that he wants to do? That's number 1. 2, what are the various strategies he is going to impart or do to do those goals. So that's what the manager does in planning. And this is not that he is going to do it, but he is going to delegate the task or getting the job done from others. Organizing. What do we do in organizing? Organizing is determining what tasks are to be done, who is going to do them, how the tasks are to be grouped, who reports to whom, and where decisions are made. So when planning is about goal setting and strategizing, organizing is about prioritizing, about who is going to do which task. 1. We are also looking into the the work distribution that's going to happen, that means who is going to do the task, when he is going to do the task, based on relevancy and importance as well. This is the second step, second part. The third is leading. Now what does leading mean? If you see the picture itself, they say a picture is as equivalent to 1,000 words, isn't it? Leading is a function that includes motivating employees, directing others, selecting the most effective channels, and resolving conflicts. So once we have planned it, we have saw in organizing who is going to do what, divide into team, groups, activities, and then leading. It means you're communicating well with team members. It's about motivating people to do the desired outcome. It's about directing people as well. This is what we do in leading. And then the next step is organizing. What do we do in organizing? Organizing means monitoring activities that ensure they are being accomplished as planned and correcting any significant deviation. As we mentioned a couple of minutes back as well, that they say that you can always, if you measure your progress well, or if you look into the performance and review it periodically, you can look into how are we progressing, what are things that we do well, what are things that needs development, what are things that there's an area for opportunity and growth. So 4 aspects, I once again repeat, of a manager that we are discussing. Number 1, planning. 2, organizing. 3, leading. 4 is controlling. So these are the 4 aspects that a manager does. This is Mysberg's management roles, and the roles defined are interpersonal between two people. Here he is a figurehead, that means he is a symbolic head required to perform a number of routine duties or legal or of social nature. That's what he does in a figurehead. Leader, how a figurehead is different from a leader? Leader is responsible for motivation or motivating and directing an employee. License is maintains a network of outside contact who provides favors and information. Students you might have heard about licensing agents. Who are licensing agents? Who are good networkers primarily, who relate to the external environment, who gets in lots of external clients, who deals with them as well. If you see the roles of each of these, 1, monitoring. Monitoring means he receives a variety of information, serves as a nervous center of internal and external information of the organization. So it's about monitoring. He is a disseminator. What does disseminator mean? It means that he transmits information. Disseminator decimates. What does disseminate? Information. He transmits information received from outside to inside to other members of the organization. He is also a spokesperson. So disseminator is when the information comes from outside to in. Spokesperson is the information, transmit information to outsiders. That means the internal information is transmitted outside. Plans, policies, actions, results, serve as an expert of organizational industry. Great. If you see from a decisional front, a manager is also an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur means what? He searches organization and his environment. He looks after the environment where to grow, where are the growing opportunities. Disturbance handler. What does disturbance handler mean? He is responsible for corrective action when organization faces important unexpected disturbances as well. He's a resource allocator. That means he allocates resource between people, groups, teams as well. He's a negotiator. When two teams or groups are in conflict, they negotiate well. That means he's responsible for representing the organization at major negotiations. So at a decisional level, a manager is an entrepreneur, he's a disturbance handler, he's a resource allocator, and he's a good negotiator. The management skills that a manager needs to have are technical skills. That means the ability to apply specialized knowledge or expertise. That means if a manager has been selected, recruited for a particular task, it is important that he should have that particular technical knowledge and expertise. So very important to have. Human skills, that means relating skills to people. That means that the ability to work with, understand, motivate other people both individually and groups as well. Let me tell you, students, a good manager is a people connector. That means he knows certain people when to speak in a group and when to take him out and speak individually as well. And that's about good people skills or good human skills to call it. So that whatever the desired work is needed to get done from him gets done. And conceptual skills involve the mental ability to analyze complex diagnostic situations. So the conceptual skills from an industry point of view requires things like data interpretation, analytical thinking, creative thinking, decision making abilities are all involved in conceptual skills. So the management skills required for a manager are technical skills, human skills, and conceptual skills. Effective versus successful managerial activities. Now we'll look into these few differences. The traditional management was about decision making, planning, and controlling. That's what used to happen 50 years, 100 years back. But if you say it has moved also in terms of communication, that means exchanging routine information, processing pre-work. It's also about human resource management. That means motivating, disciplining, managing conflict, staffing and training. This is how it has been evolved over from a traditional management to a human resource management. And then going at further with networking, that means socializing, politicking and interacting with others. That means knowing individual needs, desires and bonds as well. Now allocation, if you find this is a very interesting chart, students. If you find in this chart what has been done is a time allocation pie chart has been made. You know pie chart? Where you have this circle representing time, the entire time of a month or 24 hours, where allocation is been given for three type of managers. One, the average manager, two, successful managers, and three, effective managers. A very interesting thing, and there are four quadrants or four types based on how much amount of time an average manager, successful manager, effective manager spends on each of these. Now if you see average manager have a major portion of time spent in traditional management and very less in networking. Whereas if you see successful managers, they spend almost half of the time in networking. Also a major chunk in communicating. Effective managers are result oriented managers, spend on communication, and the second is human resource management. So in today's context, when you are working in organization, if you want to become successful manager, you need to spend lot of time in networking and communicating and human resource. What does that mean? It means that you need to communicate with people often. You need to relate with people often. You need to identify their personal needs, wants, their roles in the organization. You need to be able to direct them well. You need to be able to motivate them well as well. And that's an important point. If you are looking into organizational behavior, I'm repeating it quite a few times. If you are looking at this, it's a study that investigates the impact of individuals, groups and structure and have a behavior within organizations for the purpose of applying such knowledge towards improving an organizational effectiveness. Intuition is a gut feeling about why I do what I do and what makes others tick. Always when you're working, if you're working, you'll understand this better. Sometimes if you're working in an organization, you tend to figure out what is it that certain people do so that they work more efficiently, and some people are very good at it. So that's what here it is saying. What makes others tick? So what is it that we need to do if we want high productivity, if we want high effectiveness, if we want high efficiency in the job? So looking at the relationship is also attempting to look into these parameters together about people, about relating with them as well. So if you see, the entire stream of OB or organizational behavior is coming from few fields, and that's a very important point to understand. We are looking at anthropology, sociology, social psychology and psychology. So from a very micro level is psychological, to a very macro level of sociology, anthropology as well. So that means psychology is about the psyche, understanding of human nature. Social psychology, how do you deal with people around? Sociology, people around. And anthropology, how people have evolved over a period of time. So from micro to macro. So this is a imprint chart, and we will deal with this individually as we get along. So we have psychology dealing with these contributors. We'll discuss this one by one. Social psychology, sociology and anthropology. So what are these impacts that comes as individual groups, and they form the study of organizational behavior. We look into this chart. This might look to you very compact, but we'll look into this separately one by one. Great. So contributing disciplines of OB, if you want to find, comes from psychology. That means a science that seeks to measure, explain and sometimes change the behavior of humans and other animals. So when we are looking at psychology, we are looking at how people learn. What are their motivational drives? What is their personality type? How do they deal with emotions or perceptions? What kind of training the person need to give? Technical training, behavioral training, attitudinal training, skill training, leadership effectiveness, job satisfaction. We're looking at performance appraisal. We're looking at attitudinal measurement. We're looking at work design, work stress. This all comes from understanding human psychology. So when we are learning organizational behavior, we are taking a part of our learning from a backdrop of psychology, from all these elements, and which are all related individually. And if we move to the second micro, we are moving from micro to macro. The second element is sociology. That means the study of people in relation to their fellow human beings. And those are, in this context, the group dynamics, the work teams, communication, power, conflict, intergroup behavior, or the formal organizational theory, the organizational technology, organizational change in culture. So when we are speaking of people, we are looking at how people behave in a group. What are the kind of politics involved? What are the kind of power affiliations involved? We are looking into what kind of, how do people change in organization? And this forms the group, and all these form the organizational system. So we're looking into psychology, sociology, and then we look into social psychology. Now, what is social psychology we will look into? Social psychology, when we are dealing with, is it's an area within psychology that blends concepts from psychology and sociology, and that focuses on the influence of people on one another. And if you see, the elements involved internally in social psychology are behavioral change, attitudinal change, communication with people, group process, and group decision making, which are form of a group dynamics. And if you see anthropology, that is a study of societies, how societies emerge or group of people emerge, is to learn about human beings and their activities. In anthropology, we look into comparative studies, comparative attitudes, cross-cultural analysis, because culture is part of group dynamics, the organizational culture and organizational environment, which you might have learned in human resource management of culture and environment. This form the group and the organizational system. Now, so we are looking OB from just want to recap what we have done in the last 3-4 slides. We are looking into, we have saw that we have the studies of OB are coming from psychology, social psychology, anthropology, and the societal aspect of it. But there are a few absolutes in OB, and those are contingency variables. That means that we cannot only take this learning of all these variants and apply it. We have to look into it. It depends on social factors. But we take this learning and keep in the backdrop, or keep as a reference, so that we can refer it back while decision making to become effective managers. And those are situational factors that make the main relationship between two variable changes. Example, the relationship may hold for one action but not another. For example, in one country X may be related to Y, or if this happens, the cause and effect relationship, if this happens, Y will happen. But in another country this might not be related. Example to give, for example, when income for country increases, does the saving increase? Need not necessarily be. If in India, if you see, or Asian countries, if the income of people increase, or the GDP increases, saving increases in some proportion. But if you see in Western countries, it might be increased, but the proportional increase might be very different. Might be with the increase in GDP, the consumption increases. So what happens with X might leading to Y might be different to different countries. So we need to understand, students, that they are not absolutes. They are not a kind of thing written on a wall. They have to be looked into from a context. So very important to understand this. Challenges and opportunities in OB is what we are looking at also. That means that responding to globalization. That means that increased foreign assignments. We see that a lot of people are these days called as global toddlers. That means the people go around at many places. Working with people from different cultures has been always a challenge. That means that if people work in different countries, so we have to deal with different kind of cultures as well. Coping with coping with anti-capitalistic backlash. That means that whatever works in one country might not work in different country because of different political situations, different cultural situations, different belief systems as well. Overseeing movement of jobs to countries with low cost labor. For example, BPO as an industry, the business process outsourcing industry was very much a high a decade back, but which you don't find these days because the entire BPO industry, which has come to India more so in Asian countries, was due to cheap labor, and now it has gone to Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia because of still low labor, intellectual labor as compared to India. So these can move around to different places as well. So we need to understand that overseeing movement, we can't oversee it, that movement. Managing people during the war on terror. So in a times which we are living, be it from terrorism to natural disasters to any of the unexpected things, so very important to understand that if we want to become effective managers, we want to deal with them better as well. Managing workforce diversity. That means that we need to embrace diversity. Uh, in fact, students, let me put it this way. In the times that we are living in these days is absolutely a time of uncertainties. And the thumb rule is if we want to really live well, we have to take these uncertainties in the way. That means the technology can change, and the people around can change, the value system might change. So uncertainties are more. They say we are living in a world of ambiguities, uncertainties, and they are very fast as well. So we have to live by it, embracing diversity. We need to understand five things are different. People are different, groups are different. So when we are dealing with them, the same thing might not work. We need to be flexible enough to adjust to situations. We want to look into changing demographics. That means whatever used to work in a certain particular region or a country or a state, whatever we are doing might not work these days. That means changing scenarios have been different, and need to understand with these changing scenarios, people also need to adjust to it accordingly. Great. And implications for managers. What is the prime implication? Implication is recognizing and responding to these differences then is the key. It means that we need to understand that if we are able to recognize this, it's better to deal with them more effectively and efficiently. So when we say of major workforce diversity categories, that means that there are differences in gender, in disability, in national origin, age, religion, race, domestic partners. So these all diversity we need to factor in while dealing with people. Challenges and opportunities, if you see, improving quality and productivity. That means that we speak of TQM or total quality management, or QM, process re-engineering. Can we re-engineering a process back? Responding to labor shortages. That means changing workforce demographics, the work type, the white collar jobs, the blue collar jobs, the things scenarios, fewer skilled laborers, and niche all the more fewer, early retirement and older workers, or improving customer service or increased expectation. Let me tell you, students, that today customer wants everything under the sky. That means their expectations of the customer has been soaringly high. So as managers working in organization, we need to understand how we're going to cope and deal with it. Customer responsive culture. So are we also able to respond to different cultural changes? Also we are looking at. So what is quality management? Quality management is intense focus on customer, and that's precisely the reason we speak of customer centricity for major customers. Concern for continuous improvement. We want to be continuously improving. Improvement in the quality of everything that the organization does. We're looking at accurate measurement so that we can measure it, take a feedback loop, improve over it. And empowerment of employees as well. We speak of appraisal system is way to measure them as well. Two, we are looking at improving people skills so that we are empowering people. We are stimulating innovation and change as well. We are looking at coping with temporariness. In today's world, people work in organization only for a year or two. Attrition is a big time challenge. So how are we going to deal with that? Working in networked organizations where we deal with different networks, helping employees balance work-life conflicts, improved ethical behaviors, and managing people during war or terrorism. So the flip side about it, for example, congratulations, you are now empowered to accept all the blame. So manager is not just about accepting the blame. It's about how are you going to be responsive and respond. Today, a lot of time the thing is spoke about responsiveness is about responsibility comes from two words, ability to respond. So as managers, are they more responsible? Great. So the basic OB model stage, when you speak of the model, is when we are going from individual to group to organizational level. We are looking at the dependable variables. Now the dependable variables, where we have two variants, where X is related to Y, a response is affected by independent variant. What organizational behavior researchers try to understand. So any kind of change in behavior in organization, people need to find out what are the factors involved. What are the more tangible factors involved? The dependable variants also include productivity. That means the performance measure that includes effectiveness and efficiency. Where effectiveness is achievement of goal, as we had discussed before, and efficiency is meeting goals at a low cost or at a low resource. It's also about absenteeism, the failure to report to work. It could be about turnover of the people. Turnover means the voluntary and the involuntary permanent withdrawal from the organization. It could be retirement. It could be the golden boot or the golden handshake, as it call it. Any of these. The deviant workplace behavior, if you see, it's a voluntary behavior that violates significant organizational norms and thereby threatens the well-being of the organization and or its member. We are looking at the citizenship behavior as well. When we say citizenship behavior, it's about that discretionary behavior that is not part of the employee's formal job requirement. That means workplace conflict, getting physical with some person is also what we are looking forward to. So there are bylaws or company laws about how the person should behave in a work context as well. It's about job satisfaction. So when we say of job satisfaction, it's a general attitude towards one's job, a positive feeling of one's job resulting from an evaluation of characteristics. So is he satisfied about the job? We are looking at the dependable variance. It could be at the individual level, the group level, or the organizational system level variables as well. So if we are looking at this chart, the model stage 2, we bifurcate into more detail. We will be looking, in fact, the coming 6-8 sessions, this is what all we are going to deal with. Just an overview, a bird's eye view. We look into human output. It's about productivity, absenteeism, turnover, citizenship, dissatisfaction. At the organizational level, we will speak of culture, the design, the practices. At a group level, we speak of leadership, the conflict, power and politics, communication. At an individual level, we look at motivation, perceptions, decision making. This is what we will be all dealing with in the forthcoming sessions in detail. So challenges, if you see, of OB, the workplaces contain a wide matrix of cultures. To deal with it is a challenge. Employees have to cope with a rapid change to global competition. That is something that we need to deal with. Managers can benefit from OB and its concepts. It has to be obviously looked into from a situational context as well, because they are not absolutes. What we do, we take these learnings and apply it accordingly as well. Very important to understand. Responding to it, where we increase foreign assignments are there, working with different cultures are there, and overseeing movement of low cost is also there. If you see the workforce diversity, we need to understand that organizations are becoming a more heterogeneous mix. Heterogeneous means it is not homogeneous, means different kind of cultures of people are coming together in terms of gender, age, race, ethnicity and sexual orientation. A point of time was there when you speak of designation, you can tell their age. But in today's time, you will find easily a CEO who is in his early 30s, and maybe a manager in his early, and in his late 50s. So age section is the sexual orientation. You have lots of female CEOs. So we have different kind of diversities coming on. So when we are looking at OB, we are dealing with each of them as well. So managers have to shift their philosophy from treating everyone like alike and recognizing differences. You cannot deal similarly with similar kind of individuals. They are different. To ensure that employee retention happens, that means people stay by in the same company, there's a greater productivity as well. And at the same time, don't discriminate. What does discrimination mean? That means we are fair to people around. People generally tend to leave the organization when they get a feeling that they are not fair. The managers are not fair. So they say that people don't leave companies. People just leave managers or their bosses. And so very important to understand for them the organizational behavior. So insights, improving quality and productivity, customer service and developing people skills. OB, what it gives in dealing with is stimulating innovation and change, increasing temporariness in the workplace, and helping employees more a work-life kind of balance, more stress-free, and improving their ethical behavior as well. We are also looking at OB from a thinking positive. This is the last slide as well. Thinking positive, that means it's creating a positive work environment can be a competitive advantage. That means we are creating a positive climate towards it, where it examines how organizations develop human strength, foster vitality and resilience, and unlock potential. We're looking at focusing on employee strength, not their weaknesses. So we are having a positive mindset towards when we are looking at people around. We're looking at identifying key strengths, how to manage people better as well. Great. So what have we done in the last 2 hours of our first session of OB is we have tried to define what is OB. We have looked into the